So I'm going to share with you 9 simple steps to start your first $2,500 a month Airbnb using Airbnb Arbitrage in just 84 days. Now 84 days sounds very specific, but let me tell you why. This is coming from experience helping hundreds of people kickstarting their Airbnb journey. Some folks even race ahead like Sharon and Jose, who signed their first lease to their Airbnb in just 40 days. Or Dustin, who juggled a 9-to-5 job and still managed to do it in just 31 days. We have Brian, who's a software engineer who signed his first ever lease on day 13. And we have countless other stories exactly like this. So with that being said, let's dive right into it. But before I start showing you all the steps, I want you to understand what Airbnb Arbitrage is. So Airbnb Arbitrage is like traditional Airbnb, but without the heavy investment of buying properties. Instead, you're going to manage properties owned by others. So you're going to sign a sublease contract to manage their property, furnish it, and then you're going to add some other bells and whistles, and then you're going to finally launch it on Airbnb. But you're probably thinking to yourself, why wouldn't the landlords just do it themselves? So here's a good way to think about it. So imagine your boss doing your job. They either don't have the time or they lack the specific skills to do it. So that's the same thing with landlords. They either don't want to spend the time running Airbnbs or they lack the know-how to set up a consistently profitable Airbnb. And as someone who owns 40 rental units, I can tell you this is absolutely true. And besides, we're not just listing their property as is, we're doing a home makeover. And most landlords don't know how to do that, or they just don't know where to start. And that's exactly where we step in. And here's how you make a profit. Airbnb pays you out, you pay the rent to the landlord and all the other expenses, and then the rest is all profit to you. And before I started Airbnb, I tried various other real estate models like traditional rentals, house hacking, BRRRR, assisted living facilities, wholesaling, flipping, you name it. But out of all these other real estate models, Airbnb won out. And I like it because it's scalable without needing a massive initial investment. And then once it's set up, it only requires about an hour of my time per week. So what I wanted was a business that replaced my salary without eating up all my time. And Airbnb was that golden ticket. So here's my first property that I subleased and launched on Airbnb. So my rent was $4,100 per month, and with additional monthly expenses, it rounded out to about $4,988 a month. The property generates $440 per night on average, coupled with a 60+% occupancy rate. So I was making steady cash flow of over $5,000 per month. So I ran all the numbers and I was right. The first month we launched, we did $15,000 in revenue, $9,000 of which was clear profit. So with that being said, here are the 9 steps to start your Airbnb journey. So step number 1 is the business setup. The first thing that you're going to need to do is set up an LLC. Now, this is an optional step, but I highly recommend that you do this because this is going to protect your personal assets from your business assets. This costs anywhere from $500 to $1,000 depending on where you are. And you can also create an LLC online through a service like LegalZoom, or you can even hire a real estate lawyer to do this for you. Now, if you want to do this yourself, here's a 5-step process. The first step is choose a unique name for your LLC. Then step number 2 is to file the articles of organization to officially establish your business. The step number 3 is create an operating agreement that outlines your LLC's procedures. Step number 4 is to obtain an EIN or an employer identification number from the IRS. This is going to be for tax purposes. It's completely free. It can be done online. And the step number 5 is to set up a business bank account to separate your personal and business finances. The bank's going to typically ask you for your EIN, a copy of your articles of organization, and some form of business licensing or a permit, which varies by state. Now, this might all sound complicated, but don't worry. There are plenty of online resources and copy and paste templates to help you get all these steps done with ease. So step number 2 is the market hunt. So first you need to identify potential markets. Start with places that draw tourists consistently. Now big cities like LA, New York, and Miami can be pricey and also have more Airbnb restrictions. So instead of going directly into those cities, I like to target areas around those areas. You want to make sure that you check if Airbnbs are allowed and if you need a permit. So for example, Richmond, Virginia is filled with museums and churches and is about a 2-hour drive from Virginia Beach. You want to find 10 promising locations similar to this one on Google Maps. So here's an example of a property listed for rent in Richmond that's a good candidate for an Airbnb. I'm going to be using it as an example throughout this entire video. Now step number 3 is market analysis. So you're going to analyze your chosen markets and use AirDNA to check your competitors' numbers. So the golden rule is that the revenue is 2.25x the monthly rent, then it's good at cash flow. Meanwhile, start exploring Zillow and keep finding more winning properties. So for this Richmond property, they have a competitor doing 3.75x their rent and revenue. I'm going to leave a calculation here on the screen on how I got to that number. And by the way, if you're finding this video helpful, please give it a like. I know every YouTuber ever says this, but I need some validation from strangers I don't know, okay? So please do that for me. It'll help greatly. Step number 4 is the property hunt. You're going to browse local property markets on platforms like realtor.com and Zillow. So I personally like to look for 20 suitable properties that have something unique about them. I like to look for high vaulted ceilings, things that are newly updated, pools near lakes and canals, etc. So if you're on Zillow, there's a cool little trick that you can do. You can see how long a property's been vacant for. You just have to scroll down to price and tax history. So if the property's been listed for a long period of time, this is going to give you more leverage to better negotiate your position when pitching them Airbnb arbitrage. So here you can use use AirDNA to analyze the competitors around the properties you pick. So here's what you're gonna wanna look for: the yearly revenue, the seasonality charts, and also the historical revenue data. These are just a few data points that you wanna start to gather. This will give you an idea of the competition, and it's also gonna help you understand what works in a particular area. And you can even go onto their Airbnb listings and check what amenities they're offering. So some stuff that you wanna start looking at is their decor style, the unique features that make their property stand out. And then you're gonna wanna use that as inspiration when furnishing your own Airbnb. Step number 5 is to pitch the landlords. But before I get into that, I got a story that's gonna give you the perfect idea of what to do and what not to do when pitching a landlord. A while back, I had a rental that was sitting empty, and a guy approached me and didn't even greet me properly and just started looking around the house. There was zero rapport, no connection, nothing. And then he started explaining very vaguely on what he was planning to do, and it was clear that he wasn't even sure himself. So rule number 1, folks, be friendly and build a connection. And rule number 2 is be confident about what you're offering. And if you don't have the confidence, how do you get that confidence? And the answer is simple: just practice. Repeat out loud what you're gonna say until it feels like second nature. And yes, this guy was pitching me Airbnb arbitrage a few years ago, and what did I say to him? The answer was a big fat no. And it's not because I opposed the business model, it's because I didn't trust the guy that was gonna be operating it. And if you pitch it correctly, you're not just gonna be asking for a favor, you're gonna be offering them a deal they can't refuse. And you wanna make sure that you hammer these points in. They're gonna get rent plus $100 bonus each month. The property's gonna get way less wear and tear. The property's gonna get professionally cleaned at least 3 times per week, and they're gonna get free property management. Who would say no to that? And this especially works well if their property has been sitting vacant for a while. But what if they say the dreaded 2-letter word and they say no? After you run the numbers and see that it has profit potential, you can offer them $100, $200, even $300, depending on if the numbers make sense. Trust me, it works like a charm. I've used this time and time again to close deals. Now, I'm gonna go over an example of how you should talk to landlords so you know how it goes. Even though this is from my script, you shouldn't read it word for word. Instead, practice it so you're familiar with the key points, but put it into your own words. Your goal is to sound professional and confident, not like you're reading off a piece of paper. So here's how the conversation should go. Hey, is this Bob? Perfect. My name is Preston. I saw your property at 123 Fake Street on the listing. Is this still available for rent? Great. And I saw it's listed for about $2,000 a month, right? Then you want to compliment their property and establish rapport. Mention the property size and specific features to show that you've done your homework and are interested. And after that, you're going to lay down your proposal confidently. So the key point here initially is to build rapport, and then you're going to start to pitch your model. So I have a business model where I would lease your property and then furnish it nicely for my vacation housing company. I'm going to manage everything. You're going to get guaranteed rent plus a $100 bonus every month. How does that sound? So after you're done explaining to them how it all works, they may object or ask for more information. Be prepared to handle these objections. You're going to tell them how you're going to be better than other traditional tenants. And remember, guys, don't take this personally. Rejection is a part of the process. There's going to be some landlords that aren't going to be interested, and that's completely okay. The more calls you make, the more likely you're going to be able to find a landlord willing to work with you. So here's actually a snippet from an actual call I had with the landlord who's willing to sign a deal with me.
Hi, I'm looking for Bob.
Yeah, this is him.
Great. My name is Preston, and I saw your property at 1509 Walnut Street. Is that still available for rent?
Yeah, it is.
Great. So I saw that you're renting it for $3,850. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome. So looking at your pictures here on Zillow, looks really beautiful, and I'm really interested in it. And it also looks like it's pretty spacious, 2-bedroom, 2-bath at around 12,000 or 1,250 square feet.
Yeah.
Great. So just a little bit of background on me. I'm a real estate investor and I operate a corporate housing company. And, I would like to see if it would be a good fit for one another, as I differ from a traditional tenant that I'm sure you're used to. And this arrangement has worked out extremely well with other landlords. And I'm really confident that I'll be one of the most valuable tenants you've ever had.
Yeah, so we don't really allow any sublets just because, like you said, I only do just traditional tenants, right? So I don't have any experience with corporate housing. I don't know if I really want to get into that just because it's unknown area for me. So
No, that's totally understandable. If you don't mind, let me just kind of tell you a little bit about what my company does. And then from there, again, I want to create a win-win, and then, we can decide if it makes sense to move forward. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, sure.
Great. So what my company does, again, we rent places like yours anywhere on a 2 to 4 year lease. And then we beautifully furnish the property and then rent it out to people on a short-term basis. So you can think, our clients range from traveling nurses to families traveling for vacation. We even have business professionals. And I always make sure that I pay the rent on time. I know that's really important to you, obviously. And then we also ensure that the property is kept in great condition. And again, I understand that your goal is to maximize your returns and also, make sure that your property is left in great condition, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, like I've never strayed from the traditional way of renting, and I'm doing fine just on my own. And so
Sure.
I guess that's where I'm at. I just feel like I don't need any, like I'm doing fine right now.
Right.
So
No, totally understand. And really, one of the main differences between a traditional tenant versus myself is that the traditional tenants really are living in the property, so they're in there day in and day out. And I'm sure you've noticed on each turnover, there's a lot of wear and tear on their entire unit.
mhm.
And there's once a year you're going to have to take a month or two, kind of like you're doing yourself, to make sure that everything is up to speed so that you can re-rent it. I have an amazing team of professional cleaners that come in anywhere from 2 to 3 times per week, and their job is to make sure that check for any damages, any maintenance that needs to be done. And so the properties are generally going to be kept in much better condition than what you find in a traditional tenant. And obviously, we're going to eliminate a lot of the turnover costs and also the vacancy, um, just because we're going to be signing anywhere from a 2 to 4 year lease.
Right. So with these cleaners and other people managing, I just don't want to be handing my keys to a bunch of different people. That's just a little sketchy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what we do on all our properties is we install smart locks. So we can access those and control it literally from anywhere. And this ensures that we never lose the keys, and it's going to be much safer for your property as well.
Okay. Smart locks, right?
Yep, exactly. And
Okay.
again, if this makes sense, we would love to, get a corporate lease signed here with you within the next, couple of weeks. And again, I'll be the best tenant you've ever had. But again, I want to make sure that I'm answering any questions that you have.
Yeah. I just still, I'm not sure. Like, why don't you just do this with your own property? Why are you reaching out to me to do this?
No, that's a great question. I'm actually looking at purchasing properties to run my business as well. But for right now, I offer this model to other landlords because I found that it's a win-win situation for both myself and also the landlords. Kind of like I mentioned with the tenant situation of them really being in and out, landlords actually really love me just because they come in after we leave, and they see that their property is in great condition, if not even better than what they found it. So again, there's a lot of win-wins. It's not just for me, but it's also for you as well.
Right. And I don't know, man. I'm just a little hesitant because, when I go through my process, I meet all the tenants. I don't want,
Yep.
I don't know if I can trust you, right? Because I don't know you. And so I don't know, I don't want some untrustworthy people to be coming into my house, and I don't want parties, and
Yeah.
so that's just another thing that will make my job even harder than it is
Sure.
how can I trust these people that you're bringing in? So yeah.
No, that's a completely valid concern. And honestly, that's one of our biggest concerns as well, right? So every single guest that we choose goes through a very careful vetting process, just because we're putting thousands of dollars of our own money into the property. So we have a lot of skin in the game. And we make sure that we install security cameras on in the front of in front of the property, to just make sure that only the guests that reserve the place are occupying it. And again, I want to make sure that you have a peace of mind, so you never have to deal with any of these tenants. That's all on us. And we have a really strong track record of never having these parties or damages that occur. And even in a worst case scenario, we have a strict no party policy, and we also have our $1 million coverage. So if anything were to happen, then your property is obviously covered. And then we also install noise aware tools inside the house. So if a decibel level reaches a certain amount and is disturbing the neighbors, then we can address that issue right away. So very valid concern, and it's just as big of a concern for us as well. So we make sure that we have your bases covered on our end.
Gotcha, man. Yeah, I mean, I still not sure. It is something that's a little different for me. I would have to sit on it. But yeah, I'm not too sure right now. I would have to look into it more.
Yeah, and another thing that we can do, honestly, just because I really think this is a great property. So I would have to crunch some numbers, but I could probably, pay you a little bit more in rent each month because obviously, I'm sure you're concerned about your return as well. So I mean, if I were to pay you, about $100 a month extra per month, is that something that you'd be interested in?
$100 a month. Yeah, I think that's something that I would be interested in. So if you could do 100 extra a month, then I'd be open to doing it.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Again, I'll have to crunch the numbers and we can kind of discuss it a little bit more
Sure.
in a little bit. But so when would you be available for us to sign the lease? I can be available here within the next week or so.
Yeah, so this Saturday I'm pretty free if you can do it then.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll be in touch with you. Is the number here listed the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, it's my cell.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'll shoot you a text afterwards, and then we can find a place to meet up. And again, if there's any questions that you have my number here as well now, and so we can be
Yeah.
in touch.
Could you send me all that you just talked about to my email?
Yeah, definitely. Just yeah, if you want to text me your email, I'll shoot you over all the information here shortly
All right.
after.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Talk to you soon.
So as you can see, it's not that hard to close deals if you follow my approach. Because unlike most people, I've been on both sides of the negotiation. Not only do I do Airbnb arbitrage, but I'm also a landlord myself, so I know exactly what they're thinking. When the landlord's property's been vacant for a couple months, they're desperate to get a tenant. So when the deal happens, they're also winning, not just you. So keep this mentality and I promise you'll start closing more deals. So from my experience, it's gonna take you about an hour per day for a couple weeks calling landlords to get your first yes. Step number 6 is getting started. You're gonna need about $10,000 to set up your Airbnb from scratch. So here's a quick rundown. You're gonna need about $500 for opening up an LLC and $100 for AirDNA for your initial setup. Now this is gonna depend on your area, but let's say that their monthly rent's gonna be about $2,000. Then of course we have expenses, utilities, internet, and so on. The furniture element depends on the type of property you're gonna be acquiring. If you choose the right decor and furniture, it's totally realistic to set up your property that's good enough for about $4,000 to $6,000. Now, if you think this isn't possible, that's because you're probably looking at the wrong places. I'm going to talk more about this in the next step. Then you're going to want to pay your cleaners, handymen, and photographers that can range anywhere from $200 to $400 depending on your market. Step number 7 is to stand out from the crowd. So one of the best ways to do this is by adding a theme to each room. For one of our properties, we've added the Elvis theme, and it's helped us significantly in terms of getting more bookings. And you don't have to break the bank to furnish your place. You can buy great furniture that doesn't break the bank and amenities from places like Wayfair, Walmart, Amazon, Target, etc. Another way you can easily stand out is by offering an amenity that not many other Airbnbs in your area have. So for example, if no one in your area has a pool table, then it's an easy way to stand out from your competition. So let's use this Virginia property as an example. So everything on this list costs about $6,000. So it's going to cover everything from the furniture, amenities, etc. It's going to help you stand out from the competition. You can take a screenshot here in a second. Step number 8 is hiring your on-site team. Now, cleaners are going to be the most important member of your team because cleanliness is going to be critical for good guest reviews on Airbnb. So make sure that you have a dedicated cleaner for the job. Now, pro tip, larger cleaning companies might seem tempting, but they can be way more expensive. They also aren't going to be as reliable, so instead, aim for a solid cleaner who's available consistently. Now, the next person on your team is going to be the handyman. This person is who you're going to rely on when any repair or maintenance issues arise at your properties. So here's some ways that I find reliable handymen. I like websites like Thumbtack and Angie's List. Now, once you have your team in place, it's all about coordination. Order your furniture and time your handyman and movers to be there upon delivery. So you can coordinate all this via FaceTime, move the furniture however you want to, and then you want to make sure to call the cleaners to tidy up everything once everything's set up. And then lastly, call your photographer to come and take professional photos of the property. Now, step number 9 is time to launch. Now, before we do that, you have to do your homework first. You're going to want to look at the top performers in your area and then draw inspiration from their listings, but don't just blatantly copy them. In order to write a compelling description, you're going to want to highlight all the amenities your property offers, and don't forget to describe unique features that set your property apart. You can use ChatGPT to help you write a compelling listing, but again, remember to highlight all the amenities your property offers. Then pick your best photo as the main photo. Then your next 4 photos, you're going to want to choose your second best, third best, fourth best, etc. Then all there is to do is to go live on your property. So there you have it. In no time, you'll be ready to scale up. On average, a property can generate anywhere from $2,000 to $2,500 a month in profit. But that means within 8 months, you could be running 4 Airbnbs, hitting that $10,000 a month mark. And before we wrap up this video, I want to take a moment to share a deeply personal aspect of my journey that has shaped who I am today. So my parents are immigrants from Korea, and they work tirelessly to pursue their American dream, and I watched them make sacrifices and embrace hard work. Now, our relationship wasn't openly affectionate, but their dedication really inspired me. They wanted me to have a good education and have a high-paying job, but deep down I knew I wanted more. My mom worked for 38 plus years and didn't take a single vacation for over 25 years. And last year, because I was able to fully capitalize on the Airbnb model, I got her an Airbnb that pays for her retirement so she can stop working and spend most of her time with my son. And I've truly never seen her happier in my entire life. So I very well understand that you might not be wanting to do Airbnb for a living. You may just want to end your financial struggles, help your parents out, spend more quality time with your family, etc. All it takes is one property at a time to change your life. I'm actually going to be hosting a live Airbnb workshop soon where I'm going to analyze properties live and go into much deeper detail and have a 30-minute Q&A session at the end. It's absolutely free to join, and if you're interested, you can just check the description of this video to register. I'll also pin it as the first comment. So I know I threw a lot at you. Just take a breath, rewatch this video again, and get those questions ready. And again, if you want to attend my free live workshop, I'll personally guide you on your Airbnb journey. I'll see you there.